What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a requested Mentalism review for you guys. I've been asked by a lot of people to review Phedon Bilek's books Orion, and today I'm going to be taking a look at book 1, The Hunter. Now, I've been using the material from these books for the past 2 years. I've even included some of the information from some of these books in some of my other reviews. People have asked me to do more book reviews, and this book in particular, people have been asking me about it for quite a while. Recently, I actually recommended this to somebody because I would easily place these books on my short list of like top 5 contemporary books on mentalism. So today I'm going to try to give you guys a good idea of what you're going to learn, what you're not going to learn. I'm going to go over my favorite 3 routines in the book that I use all the time still. I'm not going to be just reading you the table of contents because there's other reviews out here on YouTube that you can watch if you want like something superficial like that. I'm not going into that. I'm just giving you guys the information that you need to know, the best of the best, because really, isn't that why you're watching this, right? And that's from 2 years of using this material. So the truth of the matter is this, is that the book Orion is probably Phedon Bilek's best work that he's put out. Obviously, Orion is a constellation of stars, and the reason why he named these books Orion is because this is a constellation of ideas, techniques, principles, and routines of mentalism. This first book, The Hunter, it is both propless mentalism and mentalism that really just uses billets. Now, the 2 main things that you're going to learn in this first book is this. The first thing is you're going to learn the concept of imagery and how you're going to use that to enhance your mentalism presentations and performances. That's the first thing you're going to learn in the book, okay? The second thing you're going to learn in the book is that you're really going to learn how to reveal information in a more robust way. So when you have secretly peeked a piece of information, you know something, you're going to learn how you're going to be able to really wring out every ounce of that so you can actually turn one revelation into multiple revelations, so it almost feels like a character read of some sort. And that's really what you're going to learn in this first book, The Hunter. Now, there is a whole bunch of techniques in here where you're going to learn a lot of forces. You're going to learn a lot of ways of restricting your spectator, although it doesn't feel like a restriction. They're going to feel like they have a completely free choice. That's really what you're going to learn in terms of the techniques. And then there's a lot of routines in the book, and there's variations of those routines. I'm going to be going over my favorite 3 routines in the book. I would urge you to check out the variations because you may like those better. Now, the structure of the book is very simple. You start out with first just a description of the effect so you get an idea of what that is. Then he gives you the bare bones, which is basically the idea of how it's performed, you know, the techniques that are used. Then he gives you the full script presentation with like an imaginary spectator, which is great because if you're somebody who wants to be able to perform this right out of the gate, you don't have to come up with your own presentation, you can use his. And then finally goes over detailed explanation where he goes over all kinds of contingencies and different ideas in the book. That's how this is structured for each routine. Of course, there are several things in the book that I didn't agree with. Of course, you're not going to agree with everything. Like one example is that, you know, he does describe this idea that, you know, when he would have somebody write something down, he would pull them away from the rest of the spectators and have them write it down. Like personally, I would never do that. And the main reason is because I want everyone to forget about them writing something down. You know, pulling somebody away to have them write something down, it's going to look suspicious and it's going to call attention to it. Instead, I would rather just tell them, here, yeah, think of a word. Yeah, write it down on my business card. Yeah, just so that way you can't change your mind. That way, you know, you can't, this will keep us honest. And then let's just put it away. We don't need it anymore. So it's really like a security blanket. It's like a just in case, but I want them to completely forget about it quickly. So you can see that there are things that I don't agree with in the book. And that being said, though, probably 99% of what's in this book you are going to find very useful and you probably will agree with. Now, what you're not going to learn in the book is this. You're not going to learn any mechanical mentalism techniques. So if you don't know how to peek information, then you're not going to learn that in this book. You're not going to learn any book tests. You're not going to learn anything mechanical. You're not going to learn, anything like that. You're not going to learn how to do a center tear or something like that. So there is an assumption that you have a basic understanding of mentalism getting this book. That being said, it really is written at a level that any beginner would easily understand. You're going to easily understand it, and I think that the format of the book is written in a way that's very easy to follow. Of course, you will have to read, the routines several times and practice them before it really becomes second nature. So that's the basic information here. And as I mentioned, most of the routines either have the spectator writing something down on just your business card or a billet, or it's done propless. And some routines have options of it being propless, or you could have them write something down. So let's go over those routines in the book that I really like a lot. I'm also going to touch on the essay that I thought was really good in the book, and then we're just going to wrap it up. So the first concept in the book that you're going to learn, where a lot of this is built around, is called phasma. And phasma means spectrum. And the reason is because it is restricting the choices your spectator has, but in a way that doesn't feel restricted. It feels like they have a completely free choice. But they really don't, and they really aren't going to realize that. Now, obviously, this is built on ideas of other mentalists, but Phedon has really put his own touch on this, and he's brought something to the table that really no one else had really thought of before him. And so this concept of phasma is just an excellent concept, because it only takes about a moment more than time than you would usually spend with a spectator, and yet you're so far ahead of them. Now, the first routine that I utilize in the book that uses phasma is called restricted imagery. Now, this is a routine that you could perform in line at a supermarket for somebody in about a minute. It can be completely propless or not. I prefer to perform it as a prediction type effect. I use an envelope, and the reason is because the routine is very straightforward. You ask a spectator to imagine something they could draw, something that they could draw in like 10 seconds or less, and then you have them think of something else and you reveal it to them, basically, is what it is. And the reason why I like using an envelope is because I have the drawing in an envelope. So it almost seems like you've predicted ahead of time the freely thought that they would come up with. And using it as an opener is great. It hits almost always. I think like my rate of hit is like 95%. And so once in a blue moon, it doesn't hit. And that's why I kind of like to use it as an opener. You can perform it completely propless. If you want to, there's no issues with that. It's very simple, and so you can see how that is. Now, again, there's a lot of variations of the effect that you're going to find in the book, and there's some techniques and ideas that you may or may not agree with. I mean, example, there is a ploy that's there. It's called the corridor ploy from Ori Asher that was contributed. Some people may like that. Personally, I didn't like it, because I think it's just as easy just to be like, you're not thinking of this, are you? And that's it. It's that simple. The fishing technique is so simple because essentially you've narrowed them down to just 1 out of 2 options, which is why I personally just prefer to use an envelope and do it that way, especially because their jaw just drops when you dump out a single piece of paper with a drawing, and it's literally what they just thought of. Just totally blows them away. And so I think you're really going to like this first routine, restricted imagery. It's an excellent routine. It's so much fun. Although I have to tell you guys that it's probably just as good as the other 2 routines I'm going to go over with you that you're going to find in the book. Now, the essay that I wanted to go over with you guys was this essay that he has several essays in the book. There's one where he goes over, it's called On Disclaimers, and I thought it was really good. You definitely should read it, because it's an idea and concept in mentalism that we all struggle with, which is the idea of, do you give a disclaimer of what you're doing? And I have to completely agree with him that it's best that you just don't, and that you just perform your mentalism let the spectator think and believe what they want to think and believe. You don't have to justify or give any disclaimers of what you're doing. So I think that it's an essay that everyone should take a look at. I think that you're really going to like it a lot, especially because it may help you if you have like a guilty conscience. It may be something that you need to read. So the next routine that I really liked in the book is built again on Phasma, but again takes this to another level. And that routine was called Phasmatic Names 2.0. So here Bilek is basically taking the concept of Phasma, where you have the spectator think of a word, something that you have no idea what it is, and now taking a characteristic of that word and thinking of a name, okay? And so you're able to reveal the gender of the name of the person that they're thinking of, the name of the person, and of course the random word that they are merely thinking of. He goes over a lot of detail in terms of how to enhance that, contingencies, different ideas, and different variations that I think you're going to like a lot. But just the bare bone routine of it itself is extremely strong, and I think you're going to find it because with just your business card, you're going to be able to read their mind in a way that they'll have no idea how that's possible. It's just going to totally blow them away. I get a lot of good use out of it, and it's one of those routines that is ready to roll whenever. I don't need anything extra. I'm ready to go. I got my business cards. I can perform it anytime, anywhere. The procedure is actually really straightforward and very short, so it's not very long-winded. Some mentalism effects are extremely long-winded and they're kind of difficult to follow, and things that personally I'm not always inclined to use because my spectators don't have a lot of attention span, but this effect is really quick, and I think that you guys are going to definitely like it a lot. Following that, there's another force in the book that I really liked a lot, which is called the Phi Force. And the Phi Force is a way of having a spectator imagine, think of something based on the first piece of information, which to them is going to feel like they have a lot of choices. But again, it's very restricted, but they're not going to have an idea of that. And I really like it a lot because, again, you're using characteristics of something they're thinking of to make them imagine something else, and you're able to, pick that out of their mind. And the best part about it is that you're going to find that he's added some subtleties. One of the subtleties is that their choice that they're going to make feels like a completely free choice because you're letting them choose something within something else that's a totally free choice, but it's really not because of the way that you phrase it. And one of the options feels like a completely free choice to them, but they're not going to realize that it was actually never an option because you really forced a totally different option on them. And that may sound kind of convoluted, but once you read it, it will definitely make sense to you. And the routine that I really liked with it was called Desmic Imagery. And the reason is because it feels like a complete character read. Again, this is building on all of the other techniques and information from the book all the way up to this level. And again, this is very similar to before, where you're going to have the person, they're going to be thinking of somebody that's important to them or somebody they know, and then they're going to be choosing the type of clothing that they're wearing, the color of that clothing, the location of where they're at, and you're able to reveal all of these pieces of information one right after the other. Now, Desmic Imagery is a little bit long-winded, so you're gonna have to have a spectator that's going to, it's not gonna be something you're gonna perform in like a minute. But then again, it's not gonna take that long. You may actually like Desmic Imagery Revisited even more, which is like a variation of it from Scott Creasy. You're going to learn it immediately afterwards. And the reason you may like it more is because the procedure, I felt, is cut a little bit quicker. It's a little bit shorter, and you're going to be able to reveal some information that there's absolutely no way you'd be able to reveal it because of a totally different principle that Scott Creasy is introducing. And so in the Scott Creasy version, you have the person think of a name, and then they're going to think of some other things, and then based on that, you're going to be able to reveal not only the name, not only the location of where they're at, you're also going to be able to reveal the gender of the person, which supposedly you shouldn't know. And you're also going to be able to reveal this idea of them hearing a bell ring outside, how many times the bell has rung. And so all of that is going to seem really creepy to the spectator, because they're not going to be able to figure out how it's possible that you knew this stuff. And again, the actual procedure to get there is really short and sweet. And so those are the main routines in the book that I think you guys are going to like a lot. Again, there's a lot of other routines in the book that you may like. There are other routines that are more risky, where, you know, it may not always work out the right way. And there's other variations and stuff that personally, it's just not my style, or I just didn't think that it was like surefire. Like these routines that I'm mentioning to you guys, they're almost always 100% surefire. And that's the kind of mentalism that I like to perform, because I want to make sure that my performances are going to be successful. So that's why I recommend them to you guys. So regardless if you're new to mentalism or not, I think that this first book has something for everyone in there. And I think I've just really scratched the surface with this review, but hopefully it will give you a really good idea of what is in the book. As you read it, you're going to get a sensation that it almost feels like that the book is just one main routine that just kind of builds on itself and gets more and more elaborate as you get to the end of the book. And as I mentioned to you guys, the routines that I've gone over with you guys, the reason why is because I keep going back to them over and over again, obviously, which is why I'm recommending that you check this out. Anyway, as usual, if you have any questions or comments, just leave me a comment below. And hopefully I'll be putting out the second review on the second book later this week. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in, and I will see you on the next review.